Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture, Land Law in Malaysia, and today we're going to talk about temporary occupation license. The law governing temporary occupation license can be found in the National Land Code 1965, and the relevant sections will be from section 65 to 69 in the National Land Code, where you will find the procedure and the rights of a temporary occupation license holder. Temporary occupation license is granted to an applicant where the person may occupy state land for the period allowed to him under the law. So first of all, we need to understand that temporary occupation license, or TOL, as I will be referring to it off and on, is on state land. It is not land that is held by an individual. What lands can be occupied by temporary occupation license? It will be mining land, reserved land, and state land. Any land that is not being used by the state for the time being can be occupied by someone who applies for a temporary occupation license. Now, when we talk about temporary occupation license, what are we talking about? We're talking mainly about agriculture and sometimes mining. But if you are going to do mining, then you will have to get a permit from the mining authorities. So as for the procedure, you will need to look at section 66 of the National Land Code. What are the forms to fill in and what do you do and how do you apply for it? And as stated earlier, the period of license is, well, it's a yearly license. It's not as if, let's say you apply on the 31st of March, it does not expire on the 30th of March the following year. If you apply in October the 1st, the license will still terminate on 31st December and you will have to reapply for a renewal on the 1st of January. It follows the Gregorian calendar. So if you look at the case of Ang Tun Chiu and Sons, it'll tell you clearly about the period license. Temporary occupation license is personal. It is not transferable. It is not as if when the person passes away, the beneficiary can get it. No. It is not transferable, or it cannot be transmitted on the death under section 68 of the NLC. So therefore, if, for example, the husband has been collecting rent from someone who is on the land and the husband has been occupying the land as a temporary occupation holder of the license, and X is now renting a small plot from him. It's possible. But once the husband passes away, it doesn't mean that the wife continues to collect the rent, because the license terminates upon the death of the husband. That's what it means. It's a personal right and it may not be assigned. Okay, now coming through to what can a person who is holding a temporary occupation license, what can he do? Well, he has all the rights on the land as if an owner has the rights. Okay? He's a license holder. He has a right to occupy the land and he has a right to cultivate the land if the license has been given to him for cultivation. And he has also a right to build not permanent structures, but let's say wooden houses, and he can rent it out. As long as it is not a transfer of the license or an assignment of the whole license, it is allowed. if you look at the case of Chiu Lian Hao and Fok Fung Lui. Now, the case is not put here simply for you to decorate the slide. But what's important is all of these cases have to be read and the concepts understood. And if you're answering an exam question, all of this has to be reflected. And as I said, you can build wooden houses as long as they're not permanent structures, because as you know, the license is from year to year. You may be asked to leave, so you don't put on any permanent structures. You do not get any compensation. So you can sublet, build 2 or 3 houses, wooden houses, and sublet to another person who is willing to take the property. So as a TOL holder, you have the exclusive right on the land. You have the right to occupy the land. You have been given the right to have the land. Therefore, you are in a similar position as if you are an owner, albeit for a specified period, 1 year, renewable, renewable, renewable yearly. So you can invoke the principle of equitable estoppel as long as the license is in force. It has to be a valid license in your name, and the person who has the TOL on the land, the valid TOL, unexpired TOL, has the right to invoke the principle of equitable estoppel. Can a combined temporary occupation license and valid permit be issued? For example, you have asked for a TOL of mining land, perhaps, or a TOL of land that you wish to remove rock material from. Yes, the answer is yes. You may apply to the relevant authorities, to the mining land and mines authority, or to the forestry department to get the necessary permits. This is contained in section 69. Ahmad can be given a TOL license. At the same time, Ahmad may also apply for a permit to extract and remove rock material for the purpose of obtaining metal or mineral therefrom. So here he will have to go to the mining authority. All right, I think it's the Department of Lands and Mines to get the permit. There are other issues to consider. A TOL is a license. It is renewable yearly. Therefore, as I said, you can't have permanent structures or permanent crops. But in practice, sometimes you find that there are rubber estates on TOL land. Now, how this happens is because sometimes the land is not being used at all. And originally, they get a TOL and they plant the crops and they ask for a renewal. It could be a yearly renewal, although it says 3 times. But well, I suppose it could be in the discretion of the land administrator and the land authority. So TOL now gives you a possessory right, but not a proprietary right. And this happened in the case of Muhammad and Kunji Moidin. He had a TOL on the land, and someone came and cut off the coconut trees. Now, the TOL on the land was for him to pluck the coconuts. And when someone entered and cut off the trees, he had no right to the trees. The trees still belonged to the state. The income from that would be the state would have to take the action. As far as Muhammad was concerned, his loss was only insofar as the coconuts that he could not pluck. So that's what it means by a possessory right and not a proprietary right. So possessory right, what does that mean? It gives you the right of occupation without trespass by another. All right? So you can't have someone coming onto the land and trespassing on the land. You have a right to kicking them. But it's again, as I said, you need to have a valid license, and it must be a license that is in force and in your name. Okay, and it has to be renewed accordingly. Cases of Mohammad Said and Fatima and Julaika Bibi will help you in this regard. So, to summarize, what does a temporary occupation license mean? It's exclusive possession of the land, subject to the period of the license. The license must be valid. It had to be renewed yearly. And as I said, of course, the first license could be given to you anytime during the year. It ends on the 31st December. After that, you continue the renewal. There's a right to occupy and to harvest the produce, example, coconuts, but not the rights of the owner of the land and the trees. The land, of course, belongs to the state. Such possessory rights, of course, give the TOL holder a right to an action in trespass against another encroaching on his land. The TOL is granted for a year and it terminates upon the death of the person. That's what I said, it's personal right bestowed upon a license holder. It's non-transferable, it's non-assignable, and it cannot be transmitted on death. It's not as if you can give it off to the next person as in your will. So I hope this has been a good overview of temporary occupation license, what it entails, and what the owner of a temporary occupation license can do. But remember, you need to go through the cases in order to be able to understand the concepts fully. Thank you very much.